Welcome back to the Dead Space Deep Cover story and lore analysis. In today's video, we follow Emmeline as she is taken out of the Cathedral of Unitology and into the reality of Ganymede, as the colony is on the brink of collapse with rioting and protests taking place. So, let's dive back into this twisted tale to peel back those layers in Dead Space Deep Cover. Chapter 6 begins with the Overseer conducting a funeral ceremony for Gerald, who had been the exterminator who Emmeline had previously killed, along with Dr. Hannah Maleska, who had been torn apart by the necromorphs now infesting the laboratories of the cathedral. The Overseer characterizes Hannah as a master of her discipline, a loyal follower who helped the church's healthcare facilities, taking them to unfathomed heights.
We are gathered here to mark the passing of our brother and our sister from this stage of existence to the next. Though this is a time for joy, yet in our imperfect understanding of the universe, it sparks in us a terrible sadness. It is not the diviner of Altman's word that cries, "Why must the undeserving be taken before their time?" It is the human, the scared and confused creature that feels the grief and pain of an untimely passing. We seek not to scold or ignore that human, but to nurture and educate it, so we can begin to perceive the truth. We do not die, for we are promised a future state in which we are parts of a glorious and unbroken whole. Vested Rudiger Gerald was taken from us in the accident in the basement storage levels a few days ago. I take pride in knowing all the faithful here at the cathedral, and I saw in Vested Gerald the qualities of loyalty and steadfastness so extolled in the works of Altman. Some are called to be scholars. Some spread the word. Vested Gerald was called to be a faithful watchdog, a protector of all we hold dear. His was a place of pride among the extirpators, and he discharged his duty with fervor. Vested Hannah Malevska was a leading light, not just of our chapter, but of the whole church. A master in her discipline, she helped lead our healthcare facilities and biomedical research to levels unequaled across the inhabited galaxy. Some serve with humility and ceaseless labor. Vested Hannah, or Dr. Malevska as Ganymede knew her, served with brilliance, with wisdom, with a drive for progress and knowledge echoing Altman's own. We mourn the fellow faithful we have lost, and we celebrate their advancement towards the sacred convergence. It is with the strength of mind we can hold both these emotions in our souls and feel them fully. The strength granted us by the love of our community and the path of wisdom on which we walk. We consign their mortal remains to the respectful preservation described in our scriptures, so we can meet them again when we are made whole. We commend these departed to the future and their bodies to the great work. Let us pray.
In the next scene, we find Emmeline using Hannah's keycard on one of the terminals, where she nervously goes through the church's database, where she locates Maddie's profile, where it says she is in good standing with the church, where her role was a silver level, but it also stated that she was in fact dead. And not only that, but she had been deceased for the last 18 months. What this means is that Maddie had been an apparition of the marker, so all the sightings Emmeline had came from the marker. However, the Overseer soon finds her, but tells her that they have noticed her work in her rewriting of the media posts, where he tells her that her silver rank may very well be coming way sooner than expected, but also that he and the branch in Annie Katina agreed that her skills within this field may be of better use in the city rather than being confined to the walls of the cathedral, which she accepts the task of speaking to the crowds. Outside in the streets of Ganymede, a speaker had been rallying mobs of people, encouraging their protests, telling them that they have a right to speak out, to share their thoughts. The speaker continues by telling the populace that they have followed those in power before, but now there are more people on the streets than before, stating that services that should be available to everyone are instead reserved for those with power and a lot of money, that this has given way to the vulnerable feeling overwhelmed, that it first came with the lack of cleaning, with trash piling up in the streets, the storm windows being boarded up, and the cancellation of hospital care and food handouts to the poor. The speaker ends the rant by claiming that the hospitals can't cope with a number of people dying in the colony, and so they have been throwing the bodies out into the sewers. The speaker tells the mob that they must cast down those within the colonial government and take the state by force, instead of allowing them to continue to leech off of their hard work.
The colony police will try to drive us off the street, but we are entitled to speak our mind and have a damn duty to remind the authorities who is really in charge. We, the people of Ganymede, the ones who have to live with the consequences of our leaders' choices. I see more of us here out on the streets than ever before. That's a sign they cannot ignore. They have pushed us too far. The doors of the hospitals and police stations are closed. We are left alone and vulnerable while the rulers and the rich hide from sight. Society is breaking down and they are letting it happen. It's been getting worse every day. First, the trash piled up. Then, the store windows were boarded over. Then, they canceled the hospital care and the food handouts for the poor. Today, I learned they cannot even cope with the number of dead in the hospitals, and they're just dumping the bodies into the sewer system. There is a crisis of madness on Enki Container. Did our leaders respond with compassion? Did they empty their coffers to give the suffering the help they need? No, because there was no money. Because they had siphoned it off way into off-world accounts, used it to buy land on distant planets, stolen it from us, and hoped we would never find out. But we have found out. Look at the misery in our streets. Look at the hospitals overflowing. The police brutality on every corner. They say that the radiation shielding hasn't been maintained and that we are all in danger. We have only one solution. Cast down our leaders. Every representative in the colonial parliament, every police officer and security chief. Everyone that has failed us so completely. In their place, build a government that we can trust. One that works for us, instead of leeching off of us like parasites. One that we can be proud of. But we cannot build that on the rotten foundations we have now. First, we have to take to the streets, prevent Ganymede from functioning at all, force their hand. We have to tear it down. Tear it down! Tear it down! Tear it down!
While these speeches had been made, Emmeline had gotten into contact with Marsh, where she tells him that she must get to Kepler Heights so she can warn someone who she believes is in danger, with the person in question being Professor Brandt, who had been working on Ganymede for the last 5 years as a professor of neurology, where Emmeline also thinks that Brandt could be a good source in finding out more hidden information on Unitology and the church's operations. But as she was speaking, the riots had begun and the crowds began to fight against the colonial police in Founders Square, with the speaker howling out to the crowds to fight back against the oppressors. Eventually, Emmeline had met with her old contact, Max, who works within the colonial police force, where we find out that he owed Emmeline a favor for her work within the cartel. Through their conversations, we also learn that the Justice Minister had shut down the investigation into Zane's death, which shows the results of the overseer's visit to one of the ministers had been successful back in chapter 2, where it's clear that the Justice Minister had been swayed by the one who spoke with the overseer. This makes Max believe that the government are corrupt, and because of this, and the widespread of Unitology, the police are powerless to knock down the doors to the cathedral. In the next scene, an advertisement plays that speaks of a scandal that has rocked the higher Jovian education community that involves plagiarism, falsified results, and unacceptable conduct coming from Professor Warner Brandt. That Brandt had falsified a study on brain disease and had copied parts from an obscured paper that was issued 7 years ago, and that the patients he sourced his paper from hadn't existed, which resulted in his work in the Cassini Institute of Psychology being suspended until further notice, as an investigation had opened up. Brandt had lived in a secured community block, with security being hired by the residents to manage access to said residents, who are authorized by Ganymede civil law to detain those who would seek to cause trouble or distress to the residents. Despite of this, Emmeline is allowed to speak to Brandt through an intercom, where he showed his distrust towards journalists and the media as a whole, dismissing her to be another reporter looking for a story. But when Emmeline told him that she believed he was in danger, he had responded by saying how people had an extreme reaction to the scandal, where they had sent him death threats. He also states that he had no idea where this scandal had come from, and he had done absolutely nothing wrong, that the stories told about him aren't true. However, he soon declines any further comment and turns the intercom off, forcing Emmeline to leave, or else she gets detained by the security guard. But this doesn't stop Emmeline from doing some of her own digging, where she finds out the paper Brandt had written wasn't about brain disease, but about research on colony psychosis syndrome, since these cases have happened across the galaxy as a result of deep space mining, which is also spoken about in Dead Space Downfall. So from this we can see that this is a widespread concern of the people, where in Brandt's papers he had written about believing that Unitology had something to do with these cases of psychosis, where it becomes clear that because Brandt blames the church, the Unitologists had seen his research as a threat that needed to be snuffed out. But instead of killing him, like how they did to Zane, they attacked his credibility with this scandal. As if they just killed him, his credibility would remain intact, and his research could ironically turn into a martyr against Unitology. And another killing with similar wounds could reopen an investigation and connect the dots back to them, which Emmeline hopes that the scandal is enough. Otherwise, Brandt might end up in a body bag like Zane. Later on, the Overseer had spoken to his followers, stating that the safety of them and all other followers of the church is paramount, and that the colonial government cannot guarantee their safety anymore, where he also claims that the government seek to eradicate them, which shows tensions rising between the church and the colonial government, with Unitologists growing to distrust the government. The chapter ends with a series of broadcasts happening within the riots, with chatter over the police comms and broadcasts coming out from the rioters, where the speakers claim that the police relish the blood in the streets, that they will hold themselves up as heroes for slaughtering them as they riot, despite the fact that these protesters are using weapons to kill the police on sight, where the police are slowly losing their footing and are struggling to control the situation against the enraged populace, where they make use of helicopters and snipers in the hopes to gain leverage in the riots.
Mariner and 7, we're taking gunfire from the roof. I need a Brinker unit up here now. We're acting to our immediate west, but we can't move while we're pinned down. So just a heavy suppression vehicle and...
The blood in the streets. Remember the cries of the bereaved. They'll tell us it was our fault. They'll tell us we brought this on ourselves and that they are the heroes for stopping us. But we saw the truth, red and savage, right in front of us. Write it down, upload it, plaster it on the walls, tell it to everyone who will listen. They made war on us.
Be our guidance from the storm. Be our shelter. Be our deliverance. Oh, blessed Altman, you gave your life for all mankind, and we ask that your strength become our strength now. Let the wounded and the despairing be brought to us, so they might commune with the faithful and find ultimate
From drones
salvation.
between downtown and Herschel Towers, do not get caught out in the open. Stick to the metro, or at least get a roof over your heads. There are choppers in the air too. Assume they have snipers trying to pick us off. And if you can, film it all. Film everything. They can't pretend all this didn't happen.
and meat wagons to the riverfront. We're containing them at the crossing, but it's messy as hell. We've taken wounded, too. Make sure you record there was guns in the crowd. We have to cover our asses. Gotta stand together, not just in the streets either. The breath will try.
From the worst of the bloodshed and despair, we take strength. Just as the injustice of Altman's martyrdom gave life to our church, so this upheaval will create a new resolve in us. Never has it been clearer that Ganymede needs us. All humanity needs us. Spread the word that only in the church can an answer be found to this madness. Only by giving oneself over entirely to faith can there ever be peace.
Holding the east side, units are moving to the stadium too. If we can drive them out of the commercial zones before morning, we can take back the city. We can do this, brothers. Altman be praised.
Altman be praised!
And that's it for the analysis in this chapter. Let me know your thoughts about this chapter and if there was anything I missed in my analysis of the audio series down in the depths of the comment section. Be sure to subscribe for more videos like this one and check out the lore playlist for more twisted Dead Space details. And why not become a member to show your support even further, which like Unitology has its perks, which includes early access to new content, shoutouts within the videos, and opportunities to have your theories be read out by me in a personalized video or live stream, and so much more, and I hope to see you return very soon. But for now, be sure to leave this video having a good one.